Okay, so I think we left the latecomers enough time to join. First of all, before we actually get started, I would just like to thank you all, of course, for taking your time today and listening to the advanced training that we have prepared for you. My name is David from ComfortClick. The email that we sent you for the invite kind of gave you the brief idea what today's topic is going to be. As you can also see in the PowerPoint presentation that I have here, we're going to be mostly talking about the devices that we support in BOS. I think as you can see also that this is the training number 2, so course number 2. We actually did have a course number 1, I think around 1 year ago or so, where we covered the other parts of the ComfortClick BIOS, which was the general and also the visualization part. So expect for today's training to focus solely on the devices. Even though this BOS supports, as you probably already know, a number of devices, we are going to be covering the vast majority of them, but we're going to be covering the big ones. Some of the devices that we have are also very similar to each other, so we are going to be including one of the ones that are going to be available to us. Some of the devices that I'm going to be showing you today are going to be fairly easy to integrate, going to be fairly easy to understand, and the other one, the couple of them are going to be a little bit more complicated and will also require some of the knowledge that may be outside just the BOS. If you do have any questions, I'll open the chat here and there to see what's going on. But if you do have any questions, you can just please use the chat option here in the Teams. And I have 2 of my colleagues in the chat as well that will be addressing your questions, try to answer all of you that you might have. So I'm not going to be, answering each individual question here live. Just probably going to take way too much time to go through all the questions. This is the advanced course number 2 of the devices. Just to give you a quick agenda as well here, roughly 10 o'clock we started. We waited a couple of minutes for the latecomers to come. The whole training session is going to be split into 2 parts. The first part is going to be covering maybe half of the devices. Then we're going to take a short break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to stretch our legs, and then go back to the second part, do all the other devices. Then there's also a very, very simple practical example awaiting as well that we're going to do. Since we are going to be covering devices, probably not all of you have the same devices and integrating the exact same thing. So adding the devices may be a little bit difficult. That's why we're going to be keeping it simple this time. But we're planning on the course number 3, which is going to be covering the tasks, where the exercises are going to get maybe a little bit more complex. And then at the end, we'll also do a short Q&A to answer the remaining questions, maybe show a feature here and there. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so let me just close the PowerPoint presentation. As you can also see in the chat window, I do have a small camera next to me here. This is going to be my work area. I have a bunch of devices prepared for me to integrate. Good thing about today's training is that I'm actually going to be using some visual aids to help you out how the integration works. I'm not going to integrate all the devices visually. As you can see off screen, I have the Hue, I have the Sonos and speakers here, lamps, IR devices, alarms. So there's a lot of hardware around me. Fortunately, you can only see this screen here and not the rest of the hardware. But when I'm going to be integrating some of the devices, I'm actually going to be showing you exactly how the devices are integrated and how the devices work. Okay, so without further ado, the first device that I'm going to be showing you and integrating today is going to be our trusted KNX. So as you can see, this is the list of all the devices that are currently natively supported by BOS, but we are going to be using some of the drivers also to integrate some third-party devices later on. But the first device is going to be our KNX. So to keep it short, the KNX integration with BOS has been done, I don't know, 10 times in the past. We've done this numerous amount of times. We have videos, step-by-steps. Additional trainings are also solely focused on KNX. So I'm not going to waste too much time on the KNX integration. We're going to be more or less focusing on other devices. but I am still going to integrate the KNX, how the usual process of integrating a KNX project is done. But I'm going to do it fairly quickly because it has been covered in the past numerous amount of times. And yeah. So as you already know, BOS supports all sorts of connection types. So all the IP, USB, serial port, any forwarding or routing, all the connection types are supported. So depending on your gateway, choose the correct connection type and then connect to the gateway. Any IP settings, NOTs, forwards, telegrams can also be set here. You already know that once all the KNX project are more or less done in the ETS environment. So once the ETS project is done, you can save it, export it as a XML or ESF file, and then you can use BOS's import wizard to import the project in. So I have a very, very simple basic demo project prepared for us. You're probably all very familiar with this import wizard here. We have all the group addresses here listed. You can see the paths, the addresses, status addresses, and so on. And more or less, most times, if the group address is defined in ETS, it's also going to be defined here. But some of the undefined group addresses will have to be then manually defined here in BOS. But this requires just a very, very basic knowledge of ETS. I can also click and drag my mouse button to multiple select the addresses. And I'm just going to use the same types that we have in ETS to import these devices in. I'm not going to go to all of them. We're not going to be needing them. Just to show you how this importation function works. We still do have we do still receive questions regarding how statuses work or how do we link status addresses to the group addresses. And there is actually a nice little shortcut here in the import wizard. As you can see, we have the group addresses for on and off, and then we have the status address. And at this point, what we can actually do is I can actually select the status address here. I can copy the address, and I can then paste it to the group address. And you will see that this BOS will then automatically set the group address to the status address to the group address. And now you can actually have under one node, you'll have both group addresses saved. So you'll have the group address for controlling the lights, so switching it on and off, and then you'll also receive feedback if the switch is done manually. And in this case, a lot of people can just then skip the status because you already have it pasted here. So this is a nice little trick to save you some time when you're importing the group addresses in. We can also do, let's say, the shades, copy here. And once you're done, you'll apply the same procedure throughout the whole ETS project. You click next. You'll see that BOS has imported 62 new devices. And in the next step, we're going to be basically telling BOS what these devices are. So in the first step, we simply imported the group addresses, and now we're going to tell BOS, okay, this is lights on and off. So this template goes to lamp. And let's say this is shades, position, we go shades. And as you can see, there are a lot of different templates that you can choose from. It all depends, of course, on which device you're adding. And you can also select each individual address here, maybe change the image if you want. So these are shades. So let's go. We have maybe some tilts here. You can play around with the icons. And when you do apply this template, BOS will then automatically set the icon. It will automatically set the unit. It will also automatically set the colors and all the settings. When you're actually going to be using it in the visualization, all the settings are going to be pre-applied. And once you're done with the importation, you can close the import wizard, and you can see that now BOS has put the group addresses into folders and subfolders exactly as you have them in ETS. So if your ETS project is created in a good way, it's very transparent and easy to read, it's going to be that much easier in BOS. And once you are done with the group addresses, of course, you can select each individual group address, play around with the settings. So maybe change the address later on, play around with the communication flags, depending, of course, on how the ETS project is done. You can change the values, what happens when it's connected, and so on. And you can, of course, once you're done, you can, of course, manually also add in group addresses later on. If, let's say, down the road, you decide, or maybe the client decide there's going to be a new device, you can, of course, manually add, group address in, set the address, and basically you're ready to go. And the next thing you can do, you can of course go to visualization part, add a frame, and start dragging and dropping devices in the visualization. And you're more or less ready to control your KNX devices. Okay, so in the next step, this is going to be the KNX. Like I said, we're going to keep it simple and brief. Let me just open up the camera view so I can see what I'm talking. The next device that I'm going to be showing you today, or the next driver that I'm going to be integrating, is going to be our Z-Wave devices. So I'm not sure how many of you are using Z-Wave in your project, but Z-Wave is a very, very nice addition to your home automation. You can add all sorts of devices using Z-Wave. They have, I don't know, millions of devices, sensors, detectors, whatever, all sorts of devices that can be integrated into your building. More or less all of them are very wirelessly connected, so you can add a nice little addition to your home automation. And this is the screen of the Z-Wave driver. When you add it in, you can see there are some connection settings that we need to do. On my PC, I am currently working on my PC, and I do have a Z-Wave dongle plugged into my PC. And all I need to do is I need to select the correct COM port in order to make the connection possible. If you don't know which COM port to use, you can open up the device manager, go to ports, and you can see that the USB is under my COM port 6. So I'm gonna select my COM port 6, and I can now connect to my dongle. All the settings, all the way you add, remove, play with the settings of the devices, all of this is done here under the devices area. The discovery button, and if I click discovery button, this will basically discover the gateway or my dongle. In this case, it will also find all the devices that are added or included into the gateway, and they'll be all then listed here below. As you can see, my devices list is currently empty, but we will add a simple device so I can show you how the integration is done. The way you add a device is, of course, by using the inclusion button. To remove devices by using the exclusion button. There are also nice couple of settings that we can actually do with the dongle itself. So if I expand my controller here, we can see that we have the network heal. So the network heal will basically send a signal to all the included devices, and then expecting a brief response. And then using that response, it will then improve the network mesh on the devices and try to improve the stability, especially if you have multiple different devices. It will then bounce between the devices and improve the networking. The is failed and remove failed options are used when, let's say, the device, I don't know, stops working, breaks down, it's not in the project, and every time you click the discovery, if it's included, it's always going to show up. So if you want to remove that device, you simply tag it as is failed and then remove it. A nice little feature that we have here also is the controller change. So this is used when we want to transfer the devices from one dongle to another. So there's no need for you to exclude all the devices and then include them into a new dongle. You can then use on one dongle the controller change, and on the other one you can use the learn mode, and all the devices are then going to be transferred between the gateways. Software set button, of course, simply reboots the dongle. Reset to default button then completely resets the gateway, which means it removes all the settings, it removes all the devices, and basically okay, hello. Okay, sorry, I don't know. I don't know, sorry, got muted there, I guess. Okay, so again, this is a Z-Wave device. Okay, audio is back. Okay, thank God I have the chat open. This is the simple Z-Wave device that I have prepared to integrate. It has all sorts of features that we can add to our tasks and so on. So this is going to be a nice little addition to add. All you need to do is plug it to the power outlet, and you can see it powers on. The next thing we need to do is then we need to, of course, include this device into BOS. So to do this, I click the inclusion button. And then one thing to add here before I actually continue, reading the instruction manual of the device is crucial for the integration. It has the inclusion pattern, it has the settings, it has the associations, all the necessary information is available on the manual itself. So reading the manual is going to be crucial for the integration. If I read the instruction manual, I can see that I think this device, I actually have it here. Like I said, instructional manual, very, very crucial when integrating device. I'm probably going to say this today, I don't know, 50 more times, because all the devices that I'm going to be controlling and including will require some sort of manual in order to make the full inclusion. In this case, the inclusion pattern, the way the parameters work, because it's going to be playing with the parameters as well, the exclusion process and everything. And all this information is available in the manual of the device. So once we have the device included in BOS, we can actually name it, let's say the bottle plug. So, and you can see if I select this device from the list, all sorts of information is available to me. So we have, the statuses, the IDs of the device, if it has any neighbors and so on. But the important thing is here under the node settings. So if I want to receive feedback from the device, so let's say if I manually turn it on and off, I need to set the association groups. Again, the manual provides all the information how the association groups are set and which group is which. But for most cases, for the Z-Wave devices, the association group number 1 is the one that we're going to be using to communicate between the device and our gateway. So I just simply select control 1, group 1, and add it to the list. If I would want to control, let's say, other devices using this plug, I can then use the other groups to add other devices in and maybe trigger other tasks or devices using the Z-Wave. At this point, the association group needs to be added manually later on, but we're also going to be integrating this feature in the future, where the automatic association is going to be available. Okay, so now if I select the plug and if I go, let's say, to the switch here, we can see if I turn on the device, the value of the switch went to true. So now you can see we have a feedback coming from the device live in the BOS configurator. This device also has a nice little power management tool. If I plug in, let's say, the my phone charger here, add it in. It's now charging my phone. You can also see the wattage values. Let's just see the chat if it's showing. Yeah, so you can see I plugged in my phone. You can see it's powering now with 9.3 watts. And now if I remove the phone, you see the value will then go to 0. So you can, of course, apply this, use this in the tasks, use this in BOS for, triggering other devices, send certain alarms out and so on. So all this information can then be done. Most of the devices for Z-Wave also come with a parameter list. So the parameters are basically tweaking the device a little bit better, playing around with its internal settings. If this is maybe a motion detector, you can then use the parameters to play around with the sensitivity, the light income, and so on. So it all of course depends on the device. For this simple plug here, what I can do is I can actually change the color on the inner ring here by using the parameter 41. So to change a parameter, I just simply open the parameters list. Here, I add a new parameter, let's say 41, ring color, and I first ask the question get. So what's the current value? We can see the current value is number 1, which is the default value. And if I want to use, let's say, the red color of the inner ring, let's see if the camera will pick it up. I can change this ring color to, let's say, value number 4. And when I click set, you can see now that the color of the the color of the ring now changed to a different color. So this is just for this basic device. This could be, like I said, any other device. You can play around with the parameters the same way. changing the parameters, changing the values here, and tweaking the device as you want. Once I'm done, working on the device, I can do at the end. I can also hit the exclusion button, repeat the exclusion thing, and the device is then removed. And I can now unplug it here and save it for later. Okay. The next major driver or device that we're going to be integrating today is going to be our Modbus. And select Modbus from the list, and the device that I'm going to be including is going to be a gateway for a Daikin AC unit. And of course, like we did with the Z-Wave and other devices, I'm going to use the, I can now close the Z-Wave. We are going to be using the manual of the device in order to make the integration possible. So if I open up the Daikin AC settings in BOS, we can see that we have the connection settings here. And if we open up the manual, we can actually see how the connection is going to work. So as you can see, it's connected by 3-wire serial connection. So the first thing I need to do is I need to change the connection type from TCP to serial. And now if this device was connected to my PC, I would then again select the correct COM port. And then the next thing you can see, you have the baud rate, the data bits, parity, stop bits, and handshake. All this information should be available in the manual. And if we open up the manual, we can see that we have the mode, the baud rate, the parity, stop bits, and registry bit, and so on. So all this information should always be available in the manual. So if you struggle in any way integrating a device, a manual is going to be, of course, a crucial part of your integration. So these are the default settings that are basically going to work for this device. I can actually, of course, change the low words, the high words if I want to display the values differently, change the data format if needed. The error handling here also, if BOS is not going to receive a response from a device after a certain period, it will always try to reconnect to the device. If the device is working perfectly, it just maybe takes a little bit longer to respond. We can then hide or remove this reconnection settings here, and the connection is still going to work. If the device supports sending and receiving multiple values at once, we can then also change here the write and read function to either single or multiple write and reads. You can leave it as single if the device doesn't support it. It will still work perfectly. It may be just taking a little bit longer because it's going to be sending each individual address to the BOS. Okay, once we have all this information filled out, using Modbus, you probably already know that there's 2 types of the addresses, 2 types of the devices. We have the holding register and then the input register. The holding register are, of course, the ones that can be we can read and write, and then the input register are then only going to be set as read only. BOS will start the address count with a 0. So keep that in mind, because a lot of the devices will start the count with 1, and then need to either subtract 1 to get the correct value, or you can actually play with the address offset. So this is going to be doing the exactly that. If you have already created the whole configuration, all the devices are added, and then you find out, oh, the addresses are need to be reduced by 1, you can then enable this address offset function, and then all the group addresses are going to be, or the addresses are going to be subtracted, and you can make a faster integration with the device. Okay, so next all we need to do is read the instructional manual and now add the addresses into BOS. And if you go down, we can see here we have our first set of addresses. So we have the holding registers. I think there's also mentioned in the register type that all the values are 16-bit values, which we also need to set that later. Reading the manual, you can see we have the temperature set point, we have the fan speeds, on and off modes. These are all holding registers, which mean we can also send these values and receive these values from the device. So at this point, all we need to do is we need to select which device you want to integrate and add the address into BOS. Click slave address, If the device has multiple slave addresses, you can then, of course, set the number of slave address here. If it doesn't have, you can leave it as number 1. And now at this point, we can now start adding the devices in, or the addresses. The first is going to be our on-off, which is a Boolean value added in. And the manual says that the address is number 5. So we're going to be adding number 5. And it's as simple as this. The next is going to be our set point. Open up the manual. See, the set point is number 1. Number 1. And you can see this is a holding register, signed 6-bit. 16-bit is going to work. We can also add, let's say, mode. Mode in. Mode is number 3. And this is basically how it works. Read the instructional manual and then add the addresses in. We can also add, let's say, a input register in also, let's say this temperature, so the current temperature value, double current temperature, change the type, change the register, it's not holding, it's input register, and then change this value to 50. It's as simple as this. And of course, now I can change, let's say, set a template. This could be a power set point, could be maybe the temperature set point. So temperature set point, I can actually change now the minimum and maximum value here as well. It says from range from 60 to 32. So change the unit minimum value 16, 32 degrees. You can actually add the modes in as well if needed, but we're not going to waste too much time adding this device. And then what I can do is add a frame, on and off, temperature set point, modes if I can have it, and also the current temperature. And of course, play around with the let's say the templates also. And you can see basically it's fairly simple as long as you have the manual present with the device. The integration with Modbus is fairly simple. If you actually visit our website, there is an abundance of Modbus examples ready for you. All sorts of different devices were either made by us or by our clients that have been using in their project. So you can download the examples there and see if you have the same device, tweak some settings, and you're basically ready to have the Modbus integration with BOS. Okay, the next driver or the next set of devices that we're going to be integrating today is actually going to be our Modbus driver. And for Modbus, I actually have a very nice, let me just open up the chat. I have a very nice demo or hotel panel from Legrand that's basically going to function as a fully functional hotel room. I'll try and angle it so you can see it in the window. The demo panel has, as you can see, all sorts of devices. It has the card reader, it has the scene control, lights are here, temperature is a little bit above here. So it has more or less a fully functional hotel room stuck into this nice little compact box. So all I need to do is I'm gonna plug it into our power outlet. So plug it in. And the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna connect the Ethernet connector here. Wait maybe a couple seconds for it to start up. You can see the lights have now turned on. And now we can start basically the integration with BOS. So the way the BACnet is connected to BOS, there are a couple of different connection types. So you can use the IP connection type, you can use the MSTP connection type or P2P connection type, all depending, of course, on the device itself. As you can see, this one is going to be connected via IP. And again, according to the manual, set the correct port, and you should be able to connect. When this retrieve objects function is going to then basically ask the device to send all the addresses that it has when we connect. If you leave it as false, when we're going to connect to it, there's not going to be any devices. So I'm going to leave it true. So when we actually do connect, we're going to see all sorts of devices pop up. When these devices pop up, we have different names that we can sort it. So either sorted by name or by type or identifier. And of course, enable sorting is set to default. And when the device is added in the same network as your PC or as your BOS server, when I enable the BACnet driver, we should see, as you can see here, BOS will then automatically populate and get all the devices from the board or the device, and they'll be all going to be listed here according to the sorting that you set. So this is the one way you can actually connect to the device. The other way is also, I'm just going to copy the IP address here. If for some reason the device, when you enable it, if for some reason the device does not, spill out all the information, you can also manually add the device in. Click add. Here under IP address, you can open up this function and type in the IP address. You can get this IP address by either scanning your local network, going to your router and get the IP address, set the correct port, and click OK. And once this is filled in, you go to the Functions tab and ask manually to get all the BACnet objects. And when I do this, we should be able to see that now, again, BOS has populated all the devices that are for the, let's say, in this case, the box. And the power, or not the power, the manual should then provide you with all the information you need to, know which device is which, or how the devices are working and connecting. And if I want to control a specific device, all I need to do is I need to select, let's say this is lighting circuit, let's say D2, and I need to change the value to false here. And I'm not sure if you see this. I think the D2 is this lab up here that I'm controlling. And if I change the value from true to false, as you can see, the light is turning on and off. And this will then again apply to all of the settings that we have here in the box. All the lights, all the scenes, all the card reader. Also, when we get the card, let's say we remove the card, it will receive a status and so on. So all the settings are then here under these devices. If I want to receive feedback from this device, I select, of course, let's say this could be curtain light, for instance. I select this device. I go under settings, and here is, of course, all the basic information about the device. So what type of device this is, application tag enumerated, and so all the devices are here. But here is where, if we want to receive feedback, this is the setting that we need to change. So we need to change the read type to currently is not receiving feedback, but now we can change this to these settings that we have. So if I change these, if I put the subscribe button here, this will then automatically send the signal to BOS. If I do it to minute read, of course, every minute we're going to be reading the values. Cyclical read is then going to be defined by the cyclical read delay here that we have it. So this is the let me just find it. I lost it. Curtain light. This is going to be the value that we set here. So now, as you can see, the light is false. But if I turn the light on, let's say I run this scene, you can see the BOS here, the light has now turned on. And if I turn it off, the light turns off. And this is basically the way you would apply this to all the other devices that are in, the configuration, if you want, in order to receive feedback from this device. So this is a very, very nice box that we received from Legrand for integrating their, hotel room. It comes, like I said, with all sorts of different devices, different types of devices as well, so we can integrate more or less everything here. Okay, so this will be for the BACnet integration. So I'm just going to remove the Ethernet and the power from this device, and I'm going to make room for our other devices here. There's a lot of devices that you don't see here off screen, so there's still plenty of devices that we're going to be covering today. The next, let me just close. This is the Modbus manual. The next device that I have planned to show for you today is going to be our Sonos speaker. So at the Sonos, this will be this device that we have here. This is one of the speakers that we have here in the office. And the way you can integrate the speaker into BOS is, I don't know, it's very, very simple. You all you need to do is you need to have it, of course, plug it into your local network. And all you need to do is you need to go to BOS, you select functions, you select Sonos, and then you can run this get devices function. This will scan the local network. It will try and find all the Sonos speakers that you might have and try to add them into BOS. And you can see now, once I click get devices, you can see that BOS has found 2 Sonos speakers that we have here. One is going to be, and I think this one is in the other office, and this one here is the one next to me. So it's going to be, let's say, training speaker. And as you can see, I can select this speaker. All the basic information about the device are here under settings. If I want to manually see some things, I can see it by going to the values tab. You can see all the basic information about the speaker. So room name, the loudness, is it connected or not, what's currently playing, is it stopped playing or whatever. So all the basic information is here. If I want to manually run certain things, I can also select this functions tab and run these functions manually. But in most cases, what people would do, they would just go to the visualization and drag and drop the speaker into the visualization. And if I open up the client app, of course, everything is here. And you can see all the basic information about the speaker. And if I click play, just wait a second here. Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear the music, but the Sonos speaker is now playing. I can play around with the volume. Maybe you can hear it better. The music is playing. I can now change. Of course, I can mute it if I want. I can unmute. Play around with the bass values, loudness. If I have any Sonos playlists, I can also play the playlist here. Any favorite music that I might have, I can also play here if needed. So all of the things that you might have maybe in the Sonos app are available here in BOS. If you have multiple speakers like we do here in the office, you can also create a group. Let's call it, I don't know, test group. And all we need to do is need to add the speakers into the groups. So speaker 1 and speaker 2. I'm going to select my speaker 2 to be as a coordinator, set as coordinator, and add these 2 devices into groups. And now all I need to do is I need to select the group and click play. This will now play the music on both speakers. And if I open up the Sonos app, you can now actually see that the speakers are now both in the same group. So this is how you can actually, if you have multiple speakers all around the house, you can then group them and then play the same sound on all the speakers. You can also play, of course, some custom sounds, maybe some alarms, whatever on the speakers, if you want in the building. To remove the speaker from the group, I just select a specific speaker that I want to remove, and I run this leave group function. And the sound stopped playing. And if I open up Sonos, you can also see that now these 2 speakers are ungrouped and basically ready to play each individual, songs if they have. So as I said, fairly simple integration, not too much to it. As long as you have, the Sonos speakers, you should be able to add them into BOS and control the sounds in your house. The next set of devices that we have is going to be our Hue. So this is going to be the Philips Hue that I have here for integration. I also have nice little 2, let me just get them in the frame, 2 lamps here prepared. I'm going to put it like so. I'm going to power them on. Power 1 and power 2. Power this one on and the other one. There we go. These are the, I think I put them so you can see, let's see the chat. Okay, yeah. So you can see the hub here, and now here we have the 2 Hue lamps. And the way we add the Hue lamps into BOS is, of course, by going to the Hue devices. And before I actually add these devices in, there is a quick little disclaimer. In order to find the lamps And in order to control them in BOS, you'll have to first use the Hue app and include these two devices into Hub. Hue has its own, integration policy. You need to, I think, it's scan the serial number of each individual lamp and then integrate it into the Hue Hub. Once you integrate into the Hub, all it needs to do, it needs to, of course, be in your local network. You select it here from the list. The IP is going to be filled out. I need to click. I need to click the login button, log in, press the button on the Hub, click OK, and you should see that we now are connected with our Hub. This is the username that we got, and also these two lamps are then automatically, as you can see, are visible in the Hue app. So these lamps are actually quite bright. So I'm going to select now, let's say, the Hue number 1, and I'm going to reduce the brightness to, let's say, 20%. And this is, you can see how fast and easy it is to control these devices using BOS. Like I said, these two devices need to be included into the Hub beforehand, so the Hue actually knows which devices that we want to control. Once they are in the Hue Hub, you can then, of course, use BOS to select the values and then play with the lamp. Basically, you can change. Of course, you can change the brightness like we did here. I can change the colors. Maybe one can be green, and the other one can be I don't know, let's say blue-ish. And you can see here in the camera view that each individual lamp is now different color. If you want to control your lamps with groups, all you need to do is to, of course, create a group. I think this group is also created with the app itself. And then the lamps are automatically added to the group. And now if I change this color, let's say to red, both of these lamps are going to turn to a red, for instance. If I want to reduce the brightness, I reduce the brightness of the group, and now both of these devices are going to be, dimmed out. If I want let's say the client to control these devices, I can just very simply select which lamp I want to control, lamp 1, and drag it into the visualization. And instead of reachable, all I need to do is I need to go to the color picker and add it in, color number 2, and add it in. Then now I can use the client application to play around basically with the colors. Change the color of the number 1, let's say red, turn the brightness a little bit down. So this one could be a little bit more greenish, and the brightness down, and so on. So as you can see now, I'm now controlling 2 different Hue lamps within the client app. And of course, the same thing would be if I would have the my phone and then control the lamps using the client on my phone. And like I said, integration, fairly simple, nothing much to it. You can add it. Is there a Hue limitation? I don't think there's a Hue limitation. We had a couple of clients would have all sorts of hubs everywhere and lights, so I don't think there's actually a limitation on how many you can have. As long as you integrate them into into the Hue Hub first, discover them in BOS, and then individually play with them. I think this should all work fine in BOS itself. Okay, the last device that I'm just going to turn these off. The last device that I'm going to be showing you before we take a very, very short break today is going to be our IP cameras. So I actually have, let me see the screen here. I actually have a nice little Hikvision camera prepared here for us for integration. It's already in the power. All I need to do is I'm going to borrow this network cable that I have here. As per usual, it requires to be in the same local network in order to make the connection possible. Add the camera in, and the next thing you need to do is, of course, go to BOS and add a IP camera in. So these are the settings for the devices that we have for the IP cameras. There are 2 different. There are two ways you can add a IP camera to the list. The first is going to be by, let's say, just manually adding in the URLs. If maybe the camera doesn't support OnWeave, you can then use your web browser to connect direct to the camera and get all the URLs for the streaming and the snapshot URLs to show the image. You can do it manually. But in most cases nowadays, cameras support on-reef protocol, which means that if you have the on-reef login credentials, you can add the login credentials, and then the camera will provide basically all the URLs that you would require to make the connection possible. In this case, this Hikvision camera does actually support on-reef. So I'm just going to select the discovery button, and I am going to select this camera that's next to me and click select. And you can see that BOS has now filled in the IP address and the basic on-reef URL. All I need to do is change the login credentials. So ComfortClick. I wrote this correctly, and if the credentials are all right, I click configure, and as you can see, BOS then automatically got all the information basically from the camera for the image. So as you can see, the snapshot URLs are saved here, the streaming URLs are saved here. So now, depending on which type of image you want to display, you will then use that in the visualization. BOS wasn't created for a advanced security and recording of the image, such as NVRs and so on. We're mostly just displaying the camera to the clients. If they have around the house, we're just showing the camera footage. We're not recording any data or anything. We're just simply showing the current live feed from the camera. And of course, as per usual, all I need to do is select the camera, drag it into the visualization, and if I open up the client, we can now see the camera footage here. Unfortunately, here you can also see all the cables and the guts behind the camera. But now, as you can see, if I wiggle my arm in front of the camera, you can see the footage here on the camera feed. Currently, I'm using snapshots with low refresh rate, so it doesn't take too much hardware. And now it's just simply displaying snapshot as it is. If I want to, let's say, improve the image quality, improve the overall performance of the camera, I can select the camera and I can enable streaming here. So when I enable streaming, and when I set this to true, BOS is now going to, instead of reading the snapshot URL, it's going to take the streaming URL. And if I click if I go back to the camera view, you can now see that the camera footage is very, very more crisp, faster, easier to read. Everything is there. If I select the camera, also, if I go under values, you can also see now that the camera is in fact connected and streaming. And one thing that we also added recently was the motion detection. So this all depends if the camera actually supports motion detection. If it does, then if you enable it, when you wiggle your arm, you'll see that BOS actually, as you can see, it found movement here is set to true. And this means that this camera detected movement, and we can now actually use this in, let's say, tasks to trigger, I don't know, a light, maybe trigger the alarm, play the speaker, whatever. We can actually use this, and this all basically depends on the camera itself. So let me just try, if I connected the camera, this is basically connecting via browser directly to the camera. So again, same footage here. If the camera supports the intrusion detection, or let's say motion detection, you can play around with the square if you want. If you want to increase the size of the motion detector here of the camera, you can place it also where you want. So if this camera does support this, every time you're going to be coming into this square and it's going to detect movement, if you open up BOS, you will see that the motion here is set to true. And like I said, you can then use this motion to trigger devices, place certain scenes, for instance, turn on the alarm, and so on. So this could be a very, very nice, simple addition to add into your BOS configuration. Okay, let's see. So we covered the KNX, we covered Z-Wave, Modbus, BACnet, Sonos, Hue, and also the camera. At this point, it's 10 to 11. I think it's quite a lot of information to handle. We're more or less halfway there with our devices list. I'm gonna just take a very, very short break, 5 minutes. I'm just gonna get a glass of water. I'll be right back. And then we're gonna be continuing with the the other devices. I still have a bunch of different devices here planned to integrate. So stay tuned for the other half, and we'll continue in 5 minutes or so. Okay. Okay, so to continue on with today's training, I see that there are a bunch of different questions regarding some cameras and speakers, and so that's all good discussion. Our support team will be handling the questions and the answers and all the issues that you might have during and also after the training. So just, you can keep the questions coming, and we'll try to answer the after the training. So Z-Wave dongle will have to be connected to PC or Jigsaw. Z-Wave dongle can be connected to both, basically. If you have the dongle, and if you want to have both KNX and Z-Wave, you can then plug the dongle to either the PC or the Jigsaw. It will work on both. If you have the Colibri server that we have, which actually has a Z-Wave dongle or gateway built in, you can then actually don't even need the dongle. You can just use the Colibri as a Z-Wave gateway. Okay, quick question to answer here. The next driver that we're going to be integrating today is going to be our basic driver. So this basic driver may be a little bit tricky, maybe a little bit harder to integrate. Not the driver itself, but it of course depends on the device. The basic driver is used for integrating or adding some third-party devices, third-party APIs, in order to add even more, let's say, devices or features to BOS. Basic driver is mostly used for integrating TCP devices. And for today's presentation, I am going to be integrating the HEOS speaker. Okay, I think you can see it here in the camera. The speaker from HEOS. We don't have a dedicated driver for the speaker yet, but we can actually integrate the speaker using the, let me just see, I think I unplugged it. 1 second. I think I accidentally unplugged it, or okay, now it's on. It's blinking. Okay, see, hopefully, I hope it's gonna work. It wasn't blinking earlier. Okay, I think it should be fine. Just see 1 second. Hopefully, it's not gonna be dying on us here. Okay, so now it's steady light. Okay, should be fine. Okay, I think I tugged the cable a little bit too long, and it disconnected from the power. No worries there. Okay, so the way the integration with this HEOS speaker or the integration with third-party devices is, again, as per usual, using the manual or the instruction or the API in this case of the device. This HEOS has a very, very nicely written instruction manual on how to, get the CLI protocol and how to get the commands from the device or to the device. The device, if you want to integrate the device, of course, the public API needs to be available in order to get the commands coming. But this is going to be the manual that we're going to be using today to integrate this device. As you can see, if I open up the configurator, you can see that now I can choose with the connection type. This here speaker has only the power and the the IP connection, so there's not going to be any serial connection here. All I'm do is I'm going to change the connection type to TCP. The next thing to do is I need to type in the IP address of the speaker. I actually have it written down so we don't lose too much time searching for this device. And this is the first step that we need to do when we are integrating a new device. Add the IP addresses and so on. The next information should all be then available in the manual. So I'm going to close this camera and I'm going to open up the HEOS speaker. So this is the manual that we're going to be using today. As you can see, once we get the IP address of the device, a telnet connection to port 1255 is required. So all I need to do is I need to change the remote port to 1255. Okay. Next thing, you need to go to the overview here, and we can see that the commands, the CLI commands responses are in human readable ASCII format. So Change the setting to encoding is set to ASCII. That's perfect. It's a set. And the commands and strings and responses are in JSON format. So this is one thing that we need to change here. We need to change the parser type to JSON. There's also going to be a very, very useful external tool that we're going to be using today to get the data out. But at this point, all I can do is I can now hit connect to the device, and you can see that now the device is connected. I can also change the name, let's say to Chaos. And now we can basically start with the device integration. If I open up again to the manual, we can scroll down and get to our devices or the commands. One thing that I can also see here is that each individual command has its own string delimiter or an endpoint. So when I actually going to add a new command in, this new line needs to be filled out. So as you can see here, the delimiter in this case is /r/n, and in hex format in BOS it's going to be 0 D and 0A is going to be the words that we need to do. And of course, we need to change the encoding not to UTF-8, but to ASCII as we did at the beginning. So this is going to be the first thing that we need to change. And of course, this will need to apply to every command that we're going to be using. If we don't apply this to all the commands, the data is not going to come in correctly. Okay, so this is the thing that we need to set. And now we can go to our command list. Okay, so as you can see, the first command is we need to get the players or get the speakers, for instance. The API requires that we know the ID number of each individual speaker. And this is the command that we need to send, and this is the PID, the value that we need to find. So this is the thing that we're going to be searching for from in the response. We need to get the player ID in order to API to know to which speaker we're communicating. If we have 2, 3, 5, 6 speakers in the house, there's going to be a PID number or ID number for each individual speaker. So that's why we need to have this ID number available in order to, connect and control the correct speaker. So this is going to be the command that we're going to be using. So get speakers or get players. And if I paste it here, let's check if there's any new, there is a new line. This is going to be the first command that we need to take, and I can actually rename this to get ID. Okay, and everything goes correctly. If I send this command, and if I go to Chaos and select the speaker here for the values, we can see the response that we get from the API. So this is the first step that we need to do. When we send the command, the values that we receive are then going to be stored here into this encoded data. So in this, the encoded data is of course at ASCII format, so we can now read it here. Select all, I can copy. And one thing that I'm going to open is I'm going to open up a JSON editor. So this is just going to be just an online page that's going to help us to read the values a little bit better, because this is the response that I get from the speaker. So copy it in. We can read it as is, so we can get, so you can see the PID values and all of this is here. We can read it as is. But this tool, this online page, is going to help us a little bit better by, if I switch the view from code to tree, we can now see the response data in like simple brackets like this. And this is the value that we are searching for. So this is the PID number that we need in order to get the device connected and running. And the way we're gonna get this, I'm gonna add a new string, name it ID. And now we're gonna be using the token name to basically parse this data out. So we are searching to get this PID number here. And as you can see, this PID number is under payload. So all you can do is I'm going to copy payload here. We are now going to be going to this. This is the payload array. We're going to go to the first. It only has one, so the one array. And to go to the array, I'm going to create this square brackets here to call out to get the specific data out of this array. I'm going to use a dot here to get the data out. And I need this value, so I'm gonna call out this PID array or value, PID. Okay, so now if I run this function again, and if I go to ID, we can now, as you can see, excellent, we can now get this ID number of the speaker. So once we get this ID number of the speaker, we can now add new commands, add new features to control the device. what I am going to do is we can now go back to the manual, and we can now, as you can see, play speaker, play with the volume. The speaker has all sorts of, commands, all sorts of, different things that we can do to it. But we're not going to go, of course, into too deep today. I'm just going to be adding a couple of commands so you can see how the communication works. As you can see, each individual command later on will require this PID number that we just got. So if I want to set this player to play a song, I'm going to create a new command. Let's call it play. And all I need to do is, of course, I need to change the encoding and the delimiter, the new line. And all I need to do is I need to now set play like so. Copy the play command. This is the command for, the speaker to actually start playing. I'm going to paste this in. Again, you see there's an error here. And here, this is now where we're going to be needing the player ID. And the player ID is actually, if you remember, stored under the ID value. And I can now add this ID value in. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this player ID, I'm going to use the % and 0, which is going to be, the first value here to call basically this first value. This is one way you can do it. You can actually also manually, type in the ID number here, and the command will still work. And all I need to do is, instead of play state, I'm just going to set this to play. And if I click OK, when this command is going to be run, the speaker should play for us. Before we actually go play, I'm going to just create, let's say, 2 copies. The one is going to be pause, and the other one is going to be stop. Because if we read the manual, we can see that we can actually switch between different states. So there's a play state, pause state, and stop state. And all, of course, I need to do is I need to change the state here to pause. And in this case, stop. PID is here, ID is there. And if everything goes correctly, if I send this command, I'm sure if you can hear it, the speaker starts playing. I can increase the value manually, and the speaker plays. If I want to pause, I can run pause, and then the player stops, basically. One thing I can actually show you a nice little trick how you can combine the API with BOS is BOS, let's say, variables. We can play with the volume here. So I'm gonna copy this command just because it has all the delimiters and everything set. Volume. Let's set this command volume. Place it here. Again, select the correct player ID, %0, volume level here. So here we can change the volume number. Well, as you can see, the API will accept values from 0 to 100. So we can, do it. We can set a static number here. So every time this is going to be sent, the value is going to go to 50. Or we can actually create a variable in BOS. Let's say volume setting. We can change the template to, let's say, set point. Not %, but set point, like so. And now we can actually call this integer value to trigger this volume manually. Instead of setting a static value to the API, we can use the newly created integer to manually switch it in the client. All I need to do is I'm going to add this volume here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the % and 1 to call out this volume setting. Click OK. The only thing that I need to do is we need to send a trigger. So we need to send a trigger when we are going to be, sending the volume, and this is going to be when the volume setting changes. So every time we're going to changing the integer value, we're going to be sending the command to the API and controlling the volume of the device. Okay, so click a quick test, add a frame, add the play command. Let's say play, pause, and volume setting. Not going to play with the, how it looks. If I press the play button, you can hear the speaker playing. The pause will, of course, pause the speaker, and we can play it now with the volume. So I can boost it by 10, and you can hear, the volume going up and volume going down. And now we can, as you can see, we combined the API that it has, its own values, but we also combine this with the BOS variable. Basically, we created a simple integer here that can be changed in the client, and now every time the integer changes, we are sending this value to the API, and the volume changes. And of course, this will apply to all sorts of devices. Devices are usually contain the manual, contain the instructions, containing the commands, and also in most cases also responses, what you were expecting to get from the device. And then you can use, let's say, JSON editor online or any other tool to basically parse or get certain information out of the API. And as you can see, this speaker has all sorts of commands that we can add. Playlists, previous, next songs, like groups. So all this can be, read through the manual and add to basically to BOS. This will be basically integrating a third-party application using our basic driver. The next very similar device or driver that we have is our HTTP driver. So I'm gonna mute the speaker. I'm just going to plug it because it's going to take out space here, and we're going to move it out of the way. And I'm going to bring out the next device that we're going to be adding. There we go. So the next device that we're going to be adding is going to be this Fubo device. Let me just see the camera, see if you can actually see it. So this Fubo device is a lovely little device that we've been using here in the office for the last, I don't know, couple of years. The device has all sorts of sensors built in for air quality, humidity, pollution, temperature, whatever. It has all sorts of sensors to measure all of this information. And now we can actually use Fubot's API and our HTTP driver to get the info out and basically display it if we need it. So for that, we're going to be needing the HTTP driver. So let's just add HTTP. I'm going to add Fubot, like so. Okay. As per usual, we are going to be requiring the API of the device. In this case, I'm just open up basically the Fubot API that they have. This is on their website. All the API information, the commands are visible here. As you can see, the API is still here. It's not as well documented as, let's say, the speaker was. Let me just use the same tab. Like so. It might not be as well documented as the Heos one, where you had, all the list and everything was there, but still the API works well enough for us to integrate it. So if I open up the BOS, we can see now how we have Fubot, and these are the connection settings. So in most cases, as we did with the Heos speaker, you can add the IP address if it's a local thing. But since this is a public or an open API available on their website, I'm actually just going to use their host URL as the their link basically to their API here in BOS as a host URL. The next thing we need to do, like we did with the Heos, we need to change the encoding and parser type. All of this information should be available in the manual. So if you see here, this is the manual. There are a couple of things that we need to do before we actually start communicating with the device, which would first, of course, get the device, register the device, get the API key, which is a unique name for each user. This key is also going to be used later on when we're going to be parsing out the data. And all the info is then available here. So if I go to authentication, we can see that we need to get the API key. Once the API key is contained, we're going to be using also this code here as a token header later on. It supports, it shows which commands it supports. So it supports get and post commands. It shows, the security type that they're using. And here we go. If we go to output formats, this is where the things we require are going to be needed. So the main output format is in JSON. So the parser type is in JSON. That's excellent. Everything is okay. And we can see that responses are encoded in UTF-8. So this is the encoding protocol that it has. This is our default. So we're actually just going to leave it as is. So basically, we now have all the settings set in order to make the connection possible. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the driver, and we can now basically start adding the commands. If I open up the first command, you can see that the first command requires a username, and we also know that it requires the API key. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the commands. I'm going to get the ID, and here is when we're going to be in. So API key and also the username. This is the two things that this API requires in order to make the connection possible. The first is going to be the username. In this case, the username is actually just the email address that we have. So info ComfortClick.com, and the API key is the one that is located here. So copy this API key. Okay, so we have the two things that we need. The first command that I have is their get devices, basically, or get this fubot from. So I'm going to copy this command, and I'm going to paste it to the command section here. Paste it in, and of course, all I need to do is I need to change the username here, and I'm going to call out the username. So get ID, username. And again, I could also manually type in the username here, but usually this is the preferred way that we do it. We also need to add the headers in. So headers, if you remember, this is the end of the header here, but the headers response type content here is the header that we're going to be using today. So I'm going to copy the header value here to our headers, like so. And below we need the token header as well. Token, copy this in, and here is where we need the API key. So % and 0 and API key. Okay, so hopefully we set the commands all correctly, and the ID value is going to be saved here on the ID. Okay, let's just first run this function and see what happens. If we actually get a response, excellent. So as you can see, when I ran the get ID function, we actually got a nice little response from the device. So I can copy this. I'm going to copy the response. We're going to go back to our JSON editor. And here is the UID value that we are searching for. So now again, like we did with the Heo speaker, we're going to be using the token names to basically parse this info out. The array is here on the array, the value 0 and the UID. So all we need to do is need to go to the ID, array, do the square brackets for the array dot and UID, like so. Let's see if it's correct. Array UID, okay. Click OK, and if I run this function again, we should hopefully get the ID number displayed here. There we go. So now we have basically the ID number that the API requires in order to basically now get all the other information out of the device. So now is the time that we can get the the temperatures, the humidity, the whatever the device provides. Now that we have the ID number, we can now start getting the info out. I'm going to add a new command. Let's say data. We need to add again the same header, so the header stays the same. I'm going to copy it from here. to the headers. Again, call out the API key. The only thing that's going to change is going to be our command. So the command is going to be this. So this is going to be the data points that the device is sending. So this is going to be the last data point. So the current values. This is going to be the command. As you can see, this is the response that we're going to be expecting to get from the device. If we use here, as you can see, the command expects the UID number, and then it expects a period or the average value. But if we put 0, which to each individual period here, we're going to get the last known value. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this command like so. Go to the command, copy it in. Instead of the UID, I'm going to be using the %0 and get the ID number here, and then change the period from period to 0 and average by to 0. Change this, and then I'm going to send this to the API, and let's see the response. Here we go, and now we can see this huge mess of numbers and the values that we got from the response. And that's why the JSON editor online is an excellent tool to get the data out. Paste the response in, go to the tree section, and here we have sensors. Here we can have the time, PM values, temperature, humidity, CO2, pollution, and so on. And this is the actual data that is happening. So the temperature, 26 degrees, the CO2 levels, the pollution levels, and whatnot. So everything, all the data is available here. Now we can actually use this data point array and parse basically all the data out. Data, okay, let's say just temperature, for instance. I'm just going to take one data out, not to spend too long time. The array is data points. So the token name is going to be, did I copy it? No, data points. The array number is going to be 0 because it only has a 1. And now since we're calling out the number to get the 26 degrees, I'm going to add another square brackets here and use the number 2, which is the number 2 is for the temperature, and call this again, this data out function, send it, and we should get a temperature value here. So now we have, as you can see, 26 degrees. I can change the temp rate to temperature, and this is the data that we get. So panel, if I want, drag and drop this temperature value in, and if I open up the client, here we have the 26.2 degrees. Just 1 second. I hear that someone is. 1 second. I can hear someone in the chat. Danny, okay. Okay. Excellent. Now the data has been, parsed out, and we get the temperature values here. And now, of course, in the BOS, we have the temperature readings out. And if I want to, parse any other data out, I can just correct the array, correct the values here, and then get some other info out. And this will then, of course, you can then apply this to, the same procedure will basically be for other APIs, other devices, and so on, if you want to integrate them into BOS. If you want to constantly receive data from the command, then of course all we need to do is we need to send this value cyclically. If we don't set this value cyclically, then we're going to get the temperature value only when the function is run. But if we set this value cyclically to seconds, let's say 60 seconds, or 1 hour, half an hour, 15 minutes, then each, let's say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, BOS is going to send this command, and the API is going to respond with a different, let's say, temperature value. So I think that I'm not sure if the temperature changed now, but if I run it again, you can see now the temperature has increased a little bit since it's it's getting hotter here, so the temperature goes up. And like I said, the same principle applies to all sorts of devices. Again, this is not a a basic task. It's not an easy way to integrate. It does require some additional knowledge, additional patience that is also outside just BOS. But here you can see the potential there is for, adding all sorts of new devices in. All sorts of APIs can be added. The same procedure can be applied. Okay. Since we're in the talking with the, we're talking about the HTTP driver, another example that I wanted to show you today is by using the HTTP driver to communicate between different BOS servers. If you have, let's say, and give you an example, if you have a building where there's a Jigsaw server, one of our servers in each individual room or floor, and there's a central unit in the administrator office, you can actually have Jigsaw sending you commands or sending you data to the other server by using the HTTP driver. So if you have a Jigsaw and let's say some fire motion detector or fire detector, this fire detector can then send a signal to Jigsaw, and then this could be, let's say, a Z-Wave device or a KNX device. You can then use this as a sensor and then use the HTTP command to basically send a value to another BOS server, which will then receive this value and maybe call the fire department or wherever to assist the problem. And to do this, I'm going to create a new HTTP driver, RPC, and click OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up another configurator, and I'm going to try and connect to my, it's going to be a new update. Excellent. So yeah, new update seems to be released just now. Actually, I'm going to also update the server. This had to be released, new beta probably during the training. Had a short discussion before we actually started regarding the updates and fixes and whatnot. And there seems to be a new version available. But I was planning on having two configurators open. I need to update my PC as well. Two configurators open, one on my PC and then one on the Jigsaw server, where I would then send and receive commands between, let's say, the servers using the HTTP and RPC. Okay, so I'm just going to connect to the Jigsaw server now. It's probably still, hopefully it's running. Okay. Connect to the Jigsaw server now, just so I can show you the RPC settings. So this is the Jigsaw that is the test Jigsaw that we have in the office there for some KNX testing and so on. And if I go here under API and RPC, you can see that the RPC is enabled. So this RPC service is going to be allowing us to connect to the server using the HTTP. If you want to know a little bit more about how RPC works and how the commands or everything is going to function, you can also check out the previous training that we had or the other online videos that we have that has a little bit more emphasis on the RPC. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to be more or less focusing on the HTTP driver. Hopefully I'll be able to connect back to my PC. Excellent things when it happens when there's a live training. Let's see. Once again, I'll just try and stop the BOS service and start it again. Hope that my colleagues is in the chat answering on your questions. The data points, why are the second one in the square brackets? So the second one was set in square brackets because we were getting the number out. If we're parsing out a string value, then usually it's we type in the string, but if it's a value, then then it's not gonna go. Okay. Unsigned. Okay, so this is I have a KNX device. I have a KNX device, a simple light on the Jigsaw server, KNX light that we're gonna be try and we'll try and control it via BOS. And the way this is gonna be going is by using the RPC or the HTTP basically. And again, like we did with the other devices, we need to read the instructional manual on how the RPC or how the HTTP driver works. And we do have a short list of commands that will work with BOS and the communication between the devices. And I'm just going to use this post command data to turn on a light. Jigsaw server, I'm actually just going to close this. And all I need to do is, in this case, I need to type in the local IP address of the Jigsaw. So HTTPS, like so. Okay, and I think it was 41. And all I need to do is need to also add in the path. So on the Jigsaw side, the path where the RPC is. So it's under API and then /RPC. And here under the education, I'm going to also fill in the login credentials. If you remember, they were RPC and RPC. So type in those and connect, and we should be able to basically quote unquote connect to the server now. The only thing we did was just establish a connection, and we're going to create a light on command. And if we read the manual, just a second to open it up, Fubot API, okay, we can leave this, JSON editor. We can see that BOS is going to be using the post command types. So I'm going to switch here to post, and the headers are automatically filled out here for the post command. And we are now going to be, of course, looking at the manual and see which command we're going to be using today. So today we're going to be using the turn on light. This is just an example here, how the command should look like. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this command to the command section. No, need to put it under post data. So this is going to be the command. And all I need to do is I need to change the slashes backslash to double backslash. This is on the website. We're going to be also fixing this because it says here as a 1/, but it requires actually 2 of them in order to make the connection work. And all I need to do is, instead of the light 1, I'm just going to be controlling the light that we have. And we're going to be sending value true, which means that we're going to be turning on that lamp using the post command and HTTP. And also to do it, need to change the command. Needs to be a thing set as set value, since we are setting this value. And when I send this value out, let's see if you get any response. Success, the message was sent, and basically the light is unfortunately in the other room, but the light turned on the Jigsaw and the KNX. And if I want to receive values, from the Jigsaw, then I will then use the same post command we have it in the manual. Let me open up get value. So instead of using the set value command to set a KNX lamp, I would then use a get value command, which will then basically if I turn off the lamp, using the get value command will then get the current data from the device. Okay, simple, didn't want to go too far here. The next device that I'm going to be showing you today is one that was actually also requested in the chat, which is going to be our alarm. So I mentioned in the beginning, in BOS, we support 3 different alarm types. So we have the DSC, we have the Paradox, and also we have the Satel alarm. All of 3 are working with BOS, but all of 3 are very, very similar the way you integrate them into BOS. More or less, they're all, you need to set the zones, you need to set the keypads, the codes, and you're basically ready to control the devices. So that's why I'm not going to integrate all three of the devices. I'm just going to integrate the Paradox because actually, if I check the camera feed, I have a nice little demo board prepared for us, which is basically a fully functional alarm, which is the Paradox alarm. I'm going to put it right here so you can see it. So we have the Paradox alarm. We have the power supply, of course, the keypad for the alarm. We have the PR3 model that is required, PRT3 model. The alarm itself, this is the zones. So the zones are basically, this could be motion detector, door switch, light switch, whatever it can be. We are just going to be using these physical buttons to basically simulate a zone. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the Paradox alarm into the power. 1 second. Okay. The PR3 cable on the other half is connected via USB. So this part, the USB cable, goes to my PC. Hopefully this won't cut the camera because it may happen because I'm plugging a new USB in. The camera is, I think, still working and visible. We don't see anything on the camera. Okay, hopefully. I'll wait a second because it may cut the camera because I just plug in a new USB drive and sometimes the camera is cut. But let me know in the chat if it works. Camera is fine. Okay, excellent. So one thing you need to do before we actually go, we integrate the Paradox alarm in, you need to set the zones in the alarm itself. You need to configure the zones and the unlock patterns on the keypad itself. The device, of course, comes with an instructional manual showing you how to set the passwords, set the zones, and everything. And we actually have already, configured the zones for this. So each individual zone here is configured, connected to the alarm, and then is triggering the alarm if the alarm is, of course, in the ARM mode. All I need to do is, in this case, I need to set the correct COM port. In this case, I think it's going to be the COM port 7. Let's see the device manager. I think it was the last one was level USB COM 6 and USB level 7. So this is probably going to be the USB port they need to be using. And we also set a default 1, 2, 3, 4 password for the connection. And once I fill out all this information, and of course the baud rate, if it's different for your specific device, change the baud rate, of course, to make the connection work. And all I need to do is I'm going to enable the driver, and now we're basically ready to configure the Paradox or have Paradox integrated into BOS. If I extend the Paradox node, you can see that it comes with 2 pre-added nodes. The first is going to be the partitions, which are basically going to be the same thing as using the keypad on the Paradox for arming, disarming the alarm. And the other ones are the zones. So this is where the predefined zones are necessary in order to make the connection possible, just because here in BOS, we're just going to be calling out which zone is which. So number 1 is going to be this one, and then the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. So these zones need to be pre-configured in order to make this connection work. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my trusted panel. I'm gonna drag and drop the partition in. You can see this is the same thing as the the keypad on the devices. And all I'm going to do also, I'm going to drag and drop in the zones. So you would do the same thing with, let's say, your configuration, adding in the keypad and also the zones. And now if I open up the client, you can see the zone 1 is already in the alarm. And if I switch it off, the zone goes off. And if I can do this to the multiple zones if I want. And you can see now these zones. So these could be, like I said, sensors, door sensors, I don't know, movement detectors, whatever. This can be set as a zone. And you can now basically use BOS. You can use the phone or your tablets or your PC to arm or disarm the alarm remotely instead of, let's say, using the keypad. So I would just go, let's say I can 1, 2, 3, 4, click arm, partition already. Okay, hopefully, and screw up the, let's see, the password that I set. Partition not ready. Okay, let's try again. Partition not ready. Okay, so this has happened before when I was doing the training, the testing yesterday, and when I plug in the USB, sometimes the partition doesn't recognize. So I'm just gonna try and restart the Paradox alarm and see if the partition is ready. So the zones were working. Hopefully someone didn't just reset the path or something different. I'll just reset, try again, and hopefully it's gonna work this time. I'm not sure if the beep was there last time when I turned it on. Hopefully it's gonna be functioning now. But you can see, let's see, the zones are active. Play around with the zones. And try also and just restart the alarm here.
Apologize for this blue screen or that. I haven't had one of those in ages, but this is probably the most appropriate time to get away with this. Okay, so to get back where we left off, the Paradox alarm. All the zones are here. All the zones are set. Let's just check. The zone is working now. Oh, okay, now it's back. Excellent. I have the COM port connected. As I said, trigger the zones, and could be any device. So let's just see if the alarm works. Okay, so now you can see, probably can hear the alarm beeping as well, because now we have the exit delay set. I think it's 30 seconds or something. Exit delay. And now if I trigger, let's say, one of the zones, the alarm should beep. You can probably hear it, the annoying beeping noise. The siren is a little bit muted, so it's not so loud. And if I type in the disarm code, the alarm gets disarmed, the alarm stops beeping. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened there. It could be because the PC is quite far from the board, and I do have to use a USB extension to get the cable long enough. Maybe that's what's wrong with the connectivity. But this is basically how the integration would work. And very similar, very similar procedure would be applied for, let's say, Satel. You would just need the IP connection port. The same thing would go for the partitions and zones, and exactly the same thing would be for the DSC alarm. All three of the alarms would work. The procedure for integrating these devices would be exactly the same. Just restore where we left off. We had the DSC, okay. Missing, okay, the notes also, excellent. Okay, so this will be the Paradox alarm. I still have two more devices to integrate, and in order to make the integration with other devices, we need space for integration. Almost 20. The next device that we're going to be integrating today is going to be a global cache device. So I'm going to be using the, let's just see the camera, see how it looks with the camera there. RIP camera, okay. Let's see, try launching the camera again. Okay, yeah, should be the camera. Yeah, every time, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. When I unplug something from the PC, the camera may be shut down, but I think I'm live now. Should be visible to camera. This is a very nice, simple device for global cache for adding the IR devices. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into the power. I'm going to borrow one of the networking cables, plug it in, and I'm also going to be using the AR remote. So this is one of the remotes that we have here in the office for controlling the AC unit. So just so I can show you, how the integration with AC devices or AR devices basically works. It's a very nice, simple device. It also comes with a whole bunch of extensions. It has like an extension, port here, and you can, plug in AR blasters, AR receivers or receivers, all sorts of other things can be plugged into this device. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a global cache. Like I mentioned, we also support the IR trans devices, but the integration is very, very similar. So there's no need for me to integrate both of these devices. The protocol for integrating is very, very similar. So I'm just going to use Global Cache for today's example for integration. The way, of course, we find this device is plug it into the same local network. Hopefully, I didn't unplug it this time, but let's plug it in. And we can use the discovery button here. And you can see that BOS has found the iTouch device. So once this device is found, I can click select and the IP is going to be set up. There is a lot of different ways you can actually add a new device in. You can either you can go select the global cache, depending on which device you want to control. This is a specific AC device. You can add an AC device, any digital inputs or relay outputs can be added. For the implementation, I'm just going to add let's say an unknown AR device. If this AR device has an additional module on relay, you can of course play around with the values of this, or you can also import data from the database. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to add a command in. So this command is going to be, let's say, temperature. Roll. And once this AR command is added, now we can basically start learning the commands. The way the learning procedure works is fairly simple. All you need to do is need to, of course, aim your AR device, in this case, the AR controller, into the AR receiver on the device. I'm going to go here in the temperature control. I'm going to go to learn mode. Here, I'm going to select the iTouch Flex Learner. The IP has been filled out, and I can click connect. And you can see now I'm connected. And all I need to do now is I just need to set the temperature or need to learn an AR command. So I'm going to aim the AR controller and plus button to the global cache device. And we should receive a code like this. So this is going to be our code that we're going to be using for the, let's say, to increase the temperature value. So learn. And now this is the, let's say, increase temperature. I can also use the AR device at the top to add multiple in. So, connect here. And now I can add a name. So let's say, and to decrease temperature, we are connected. Press the minus button, aim it into the device. There we go, and click learn. Then now BOS is going to be, as you can see, automatically fill out the device list or the command list. And now we can see we have sleep mode, field mode, power mode. It can actually power on and off. Hit the power button. This is the power command, and now we can see on, off command. And basically, you would continue with this pattern, adding the commands in. Then, as per usual, you can create a frame, a visualization, and I think this is the command send run function to basically run this function. So increase temperature. Increase temperature, and also let's just off, something like this. And now you can basically use the client application to try and control your AC. Of course, like I said, if you want to control the AC using this device, you probably need to have a specific extension, an AR blaster, in order to send the data to actual the AC unit. And of course, make sure that the AC unit is visible to this device, and it is in range, of course, to control it. And also, please know that this is, in most cases, a one-way connection. So we're just simply sending the data to the AC unit and controlling it. Okay, last but not least, the last device that we're going to be integrating today, and we're going to be, we would be perfectly on time if it wasn't for the technical difficulties with my PC. The last device I'm going to be showing you today is going to be the Kodi device. So I simply add the Kodi in. I'm going to open up Kodi on my PC. Kodi has been, it's been very, very popular for quite some time for, music and videos and so on. Now, more or less, people are leaning towards to, the streaming videos that we have and streaming online movies and songs and whatnot for other platforms. But it's still around. Kodi is still around, still working as it should. In order for us to, connect this Kodi with my PC, I need to go to the settings, and I'm going to go to the services. And here under control, I'm going to allow remote control. This will basically allow BOS to Kodi. I'm just going to use Kodi for login. This will allow basically BOS to send commands to BOS and to Kodi and play the music. For instance, I'm also going to allow this remote control for other system function. This is the first thing you need to do, and the second thing you need to go to the system and then allow internet access. I'm going to use my local IP. And then with any other server or any other controller, you could then use a different IP, of course. And I can use the same port, so I'm just going to use a different one. I'm going to use Kodi. Once all these settings are set, you can go to the configurator, type in my local IP, address, the login or the Kodi. There's some features that we can enable or disable. Wake up on LAN if needed. Which Windows client we're going to use this. All the settings can be set, and I'm just going to enable the driver. And if I go back to my visualization, drag and drop Kodi in, and there is a lot of features that we can drag and drop into visualization. So we can be now playing, for instance, or let's say library. These two functions are going to be added in. And if I open up my client application, we can now see a fully functional Kodi player. I have a bunch of Christmas songs, as you can see on my PC. And if I select this one from the list, the song starts playing. I currently have my audio muted, but you can see that the Jingle Bell songs goes on. We can play, we can pause, stop, it works very, very well. If you have this kind of platform installed, you can switch between different, if you have different playlists, if you have videos and whatnot, so you can, play other songs if needed, if you have them on. But this is, like I said, fairly simple integration with Kodi and BOS to play songs, play music, videos, whatever, basically. Okay, so at this point, this would conclude the advanced training number 2. It's been more or less 2 hours on the mark. Take the breakout and the PC crash. I think that I hear my colleague here typing away with the questions, so I think there's a lot of questions here that need to be answered in the chat. I am going to take a very, very short break here to stretch my legs and get a glass of water. Then I think we have the Q&A also, and then also we have the exercise. So there is a very, very simple, like I said in the beginning, there's a simple exercise waiting for you guys, so you can show you how the integration with devices and how the examples also work on our page. I'm just going to open up PowerPoint. I lost it earlier, unfortunately. Full screen, and here's the exercise. So so we are at this point basically where we have the in-depth, more or less part 2 of the devices. And the next thing that I'm going to leave you with for the next minutes. Let's just switch like so. It's going to be the practical exercise. So the practical exercise is going to be fairly simple for you all. It's a little bit difficult to give you an exercise or an example if you don't have a specific device. So we try to keep it simple. But the next time, if you're going to be joining me for part 3, we're going to be working with the tasks. Or there's probably going to be a lot more exercises for you. So it's simple exercise. If you go to our website, go to this. If you're familiar with this, go to the support and the examples library, and download one of the examples that we have for Modbus. This is Tonio's example, and add it to your system and see if you can, play with the settings, tweak the settings, and see if you can see how the integration of examples work. Okay, short break. I'll give you what's the time for the exercises, practical exercises, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. We'll be back. There'll be more discussions. My colleagues are going to be in chat answering the questions, and then also probably, since I don't have much voice left in me, I'll turn over my mic to my colleague here for any in-depth questions if you have them. So okay, we'll talk later. Okay, so to show you, just unplug the view or the global cache. To show you how the examples work, how to import examples into BOS. Let me just go to our website like here. You probably already know how the examples, where the examples are and how to import them, but to show you here how the exercise looks, if you go to the support, go to the examples library, and then as you can see a bunch of different examples. We're always trying to improve the database, try to add as many examples as possible. So I encourage you all that you're still here today. If you do have an interesting task or an interesting integration with the device, feel free to post it. There are some rewards that are waiting for you if you actually do post a interesting example. We will then post it on this website like so, and so the other clients can also then download the example and also integrate these devices into their building as well. So Fronius, I actually searched this as well. Fronius example via Modbus. You can see there are, for each individual example, there is usually a short description, manual as per usual, how the Modbus, how the driver works with the address and so on. So look at the manual of the device. Short description, like I said, and then also the download button here to download the example. Download it, desktop. I'm going to open up the configurator, and I'm going to use, of course, this is just a very basic explanation, but if you are going to be importing just one part or one example, you're not going to be using the restore configuration. You're just going to be using the import configuration or import tab or import function here. Locate the Fronius example, open it up, and then add it to BOS. And when I open the Fronius, you can see it has all the settings, all the addresses set, frequencies, graphs, power, everything that the example has or the device provides. In most cases, a lot of the examples will also come with a visualization. In this case, this is a custom image. You can then just change the layout here. I think it's on the layouts for the power. Tweak the settings around. And then you can use this, of course, in your configuration. If you have maybe a Fronius device that is maybe a little bit different that we have here shown, of course, read the manual, tweak the settings, and you should be able to add this device there. Okay, so I am currently completely running out of voice. So there is still a short time period here planned for some Q&A if you have any additional questions. My colleagues have been busy in the meantime with trying to answer your questions. I would like to thank all of you that joined me today, took this 2 hours and a half of your time listening to this advanced training. I hope that you learn a lot of new things on how to integrate certain things into BOS. This session has been recorded, so we're also going to be publishing the rundown version of the training to our YouTube, so you can also look at later on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, Matisse is going to be taking over for the next couple of minutes if you have any unanswered questions. Again, thank you very much, and stay safe.
Okay, hello. My name is Matisse, and I will take over the questions now. If you have any questions, I can help you with the answers. So just please write the question down in the comment below, and we will go through them.
Okay. Can you help me to RGB view in KNX integration with 6-byte data point?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
RGB view.
Yes.
In KNX.
Okay.
6-byte data point.
Let's check.
This, yes.
This one?
Yes, yes. How can I can implement it?
So you would like to add it to the theme. You can create RGB mixer here.
Okay.
And then you link the values to the specific channel. I think that they start. Actually, I think that we already changed the values here, the names, but I will check with our development team. But in any case, you can link this red, green, blue, and white channels to these specific values. If you don't know which one is which, I'm sure that there is. You can check in ETS. And I will also make sure that we will update this data point, so there will be not byte names, but the actual names of the variable.
Okay. I have the I can share you the screen of.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, I sorry. Okay. The second byte, the 6-byte data point of KNX use only 4 byte. One is to spare, and one is for 4-bit set to 1 when we won't send the color to the bus.
Sorry, I didn't get the question, the second question.
If you try it, it don't work because the byte 2 is a spare byte. It don't work, and the byte 1 is utilized only for the first 4-bit. One bit per color. Zero. So one when I set the red color, for example, the second byte will be set to 1 to write the color. I can send into the chat a photo of.
Yes, please just schedule a session.
In the chat. I have just send you the display of data point RGB.
Okay.
You can see the first byte MR, MG, MB, MVW. It will be set to 1 to send the color to the bus. I have a MDT DMARC KNX, and I can't use your 6-byte integration.
Okay, I understand. I said I will check this with our development team. I'm sure that we already did some changes, but maybe it's not in this update. It was not included in this update. But for this, I mean, which device are you using?
MDT.
Okay,
MDT
because in MDT you can also select to go with the traditional.
Yes, I use the traditional method, 1 byte per color with a RGB mixer, and it works fine.
Okay.
but I prefer use the 6-byte
of course.
solution for more practice.
Thank you for the report. Can you also please put a ticket on our webpage and we will check?
Thank you. Thank
if
you.
it was not resolved already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. How I can integrate KNX button with Philips Hue? I want command with on-off or dimmer command with KNX touch panel. Okay, it's a KNX button. Okay, for KNX electronic buttons. Okay, to command the with switch on off the Philips Hue lamps. How we can do this integration?
Okay, so let's say that we have your KNX button. Actually, let me just show you the. We have an example already made. Here. It's made for ZOS and KNX, but you can also use it with Hue. So I will import this example. Sorry, just a second. Okay. So here is the program, and this will be our Hue.
Okay.
And this is our KNX switch, so we can use this example. Button. And this is our lamp, Hue lamp. Power. And basically now, when I change the KNX switch, also this lamp is turned on. Now it's turned on because of this is just a connection, but I will change it to demo. And it's also it works vice versa, so the status is also affecting the KNX switch. If somebody turns on the lamp over KNX switch, the lamp turns on, and then somebody turns Hue lamp off, it also reflects the status here. So it works in both directions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other question?
Sorry, I have another question. Sorry.
No problem.
To see the IP camera in full screen, how I can configure the panel?
Okay, you create a panel,
Okay.
then you change this column width height ratio and you set it to 0. And now it will be basically full screen. So when you drag and drop, or maybe I can create a frame. So it will be, as you see, it's over full screen now. So if I put it back to where it was, it's like this. And if you change this to 0, it goes to full screen.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, regarding the cameras, maybe I can also show you this. So you can create, let's see, a panel with where you have overview of all IP cameras. And here, okay, you can do again full screen, and here you can say, okay, I want grid 4x4 for 16 cameras. And then you put the camera in, and when you are using multiple cameras per one panel, do not enable the streaming. Just use this JPEG snapshots, because the streaming is really demanding on the CPU. And on this overview panel, just use the screenshots. I mean the snapshots, and then you can create a sub panel here, and you can rename it IP camera 1. Here you create a full screen view of camera that you want to show, and here you can enable streaming, and then you just link this camera with the panel link here to this panel. There is a arrow shown on the camera, and when you will go here now, you cannot see the sub menu, but you can click, when you will click the camera here, it will open the sub panel with the full screen and streaming enabled.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you please present visualization for tunable white? I mean, for transition between cold white to warm white lamp.
Okay.
I succeed to change it on temperature to play with temperature of the color, but
Yes.
I'm not able to get a visualization with transition. Same for it's happened on RGB, which is well implemented in the system.
Yeah, well,
for to enable white light.
Unfortunately, we do not have a special control for white light or tunable white yet. So in KNX you have two options. Either you control it from 0 to 100%, which I recommend because it's easier for the end user also, and you can. The second option is to use the temperature with kelvins, so it's tunable from, I don't know, 2800 until 6500. In any case, if you're using the from 0 to 100%, you use normal 1 byte unsigned, so this is your temperature.
I already succeed to implement in a project, but
Okay.
I'm just interested of visualization. But as you said, will be implemented.
Yeah, we do not have the
have
a
a
separate
validation.
control for it now. You can create it just with with this. So you can create a slider, this one, and that's it. This is how you can control the light, the temperature of the light. So like the dimmer.
This kind of lamps. So maybe in the future you'll have some nice visualization of.
Yes, yes, yes. I will add this as a bit higher priority for the task that we are developing already.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Anyone else? Is anyone speaking, or because I cannot hear anything? Okay, I see the question now. Can you create a scene that when it's activated, the Sonos speaker play a song? Well, you could do this with a program task, let's say. Here you would just say, okay, let's create a scene. And this program task can, okay, let's create it with the scene first, and then I will show you also with the program task. So here you would just add, some lights in the scenes, some shades or whatever, and then you will also select your Sonos speaker, and you would say, sorry, no. Here you can only set the volume, the values. You cannot run a function, so you would need to use a program task, and you would do it with here run function. You would select a Sonos speaker that you want to run, and you would say, okay, I want to play favorite, I want to play a playlist or a file by URL or some specific file in your music library. But if you, let's say you have a favorite playlist, you just enter the favorite's name here. Let's say I don't know part. And now, if you would want to trigger this in a scene, you would actually need to create a variable. So play Sonos, and then you should set the trigger here. Play Sonos when this is true, and here you would add this play Sonos and set it to true. This is how you would trigger it through the scene. For Sonos Move, please just contact our support team and we'll check what is the difference between Sonos One and which functions do not work. Also, please describe the problem there. Well, with which relay panel is this? You should, in order to control the Modbus relay panel, you should decode the hex codes, or you can try and error by enabling this debug log. And here, when you set record and Modbus, you would see the values that are sent to the Modbus will be in hex, and this is basically what it's represented in this manual. If this manual doesn't have the like a decimal description, you could also go to the Modbus protocol definition, or this one is maybe. And let's see. Where do we have? So here you have, okay, function codes for specific device. So for a specific register. So let's say if you have 05 in your case, I guess, yes. This is, if we check your code for, I will just paste it here. So basically the function code is this, and this represents write single, and this is for the output coil. So this is for the relay. We are using only Boolean values because we have only either a relay is closed or open. And with this 05, you write, we can define that this is, let's create it here. So, Modbus relay. And actually we will be using Boolean, so relay 1. And we said that 05 is actually a discrete output coil. So we will define this Modbus table as a coil, so that's okay. Now the only thing that we need to set is the address, but I guess it's set to 0. So you will start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say if you have 8 relays, and the slave address, I don't know what type of connection is this relay using, if it's using TCP or RTU serial. You need to set this here, and then you just try. You start with slave address 1, or if it's usually it's written in the manual what's the slave address of the device by default. Then of course you can change it, or sometimes the Modbus device has either deep switches or for setting the address, or there is an, I don't know, LCD display where you can set the slave address. How can we stop ventilation from one zone of the security system? So let's say that we would want to stop the ventilation whenever the specific zone would be triggered. Let's say that this is our ventilation relay, and this will be our task. So stop ventilation, and as a trigger we would add our paradox alarm zone 1. Whenever this zone is triggered, so whenever it equals true, we want to do something. So first we can check if the ventilation is running, and if it is running we can turn it off, for example. Okay, now turn it off, or we can say, okay, now if it's running, then I want to turn it off after 30 seconds. If it wasn't manually turned off yet. So now we can also check again if the ventilation is still true, then we turn it off. That's quite a simple example of how to turn off the ventilation. If I just read now that you were using the magnetic contact from the alarm system, but is it, if the alarm system was done on the KNX, just the trigger would be different, so it wouldn't be from the paradox, but it would be from the KNX. Let's say if this would be a KNX sensor, if this would change to true, then we would do the same. You can also add multiple triggers, so it's either that or the paradox. And now when each of those will equal to true, this program will run. Okay, I see that we have again question for Sonos, because I guess that you clicked here set value, not run. Because if you go under Sonos, just so the question was why the program task only can adjust volume, loudness, and not include play functions. Because these values, if you here select set value, then those values are basically values that are under this tab, so all these values, and only the values that can be set. So these are volume, mute, bass, treble, loudness, and that's it. Other are only are read only, so this cannot be set. And the other one is functions. So this is basically the functions, and these are triggered from the here, from the run menu. So these ones can run functions, and this one set values. So that's the difference. Remote user is basically a user that is used for, let's say, if the client doesn't want system integrator to connect to the system I mean, if they want to system integrator to connect to the system only when they allow it, then you create a user remote support account, and this remote support account can only connect to the configurator when user enables the remote support here. Sorry, this one here. Whenever this is disabled, the system integrator or the user remote support cannot log in to the BOS. If this is enabled, then the remote support user can log in to the system. So this is basically when you would use this remote support account. Okay, so anything else?
I've got a question regarding the remote support. So if the remote support is someone who would like to got the access, they have to got the on the user in a system. Is it right?
Sorry.
If you've got because the BS got the limitation with the users. So
Yes.
let's say they've got the 2 users for the one of the control device, the server.
Yes.
And that way, if you, for example, would like to got the support, I ask about the remote support. If you would like to got the support for the customer, so we have to create the second user. So we will use the
Yes.
second. Okay. So if you use both the server with the 2 users and we would like to got the support, they have to pay extra for the additional user.
Yes, basically, but you get 2 users, so.
So if I will use the same password and the login as a user, which one is user 1, let's say, and then they will be disabled by the main user, that can be operate that way or other way.
No, you cannot have the same user name as this one. So this one has their own username and password, and the remote support has their own username and password.
But the remote user use one of the license or the account, other users.
Yes,
That's right.
also yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so that way the someone who got a server lose the 1 user.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's all. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, anything else? Okay, if that's it, we will conclude this session today. I hope that you enjoyed the training that David presented and the questions that were answered. Of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask on our forum or write a support ticket if you have any problems, and we will answer you as soon as possible. Okay, so thank you again and have a nice day. Bye.